So, what's going on? How you doing?
Recovering from last night's main card. My
Yeah.
heart hurts.
Yeah.
I'm saddened.
Yeah. Ilya Taporia and Charles Oliveira. That was a tough one.
All the respect to Ilya. He said what he was going to do. He went out there. He did it. He was professional about it. Like, I have no gripes with Ilya. My heart hurts as a Charles fan.
Yeah.
I hate to see it. But, yeah, that's what I've got going on.
It's kind of like why I don't root for people.
I get it, man. I'm sitting there watching it with Alex, one of our training partners here at the gym, and he hit the floor, and as soon as just the way he crumbled, I knew, bang, it was done right there before even the follow-up shots hit.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, why do I subject myself to this?
Yeah.
Especially someone like Charles who goes in there, like, he's either going to win or he's going out on his shield. There is no in-between, with him. Yeah. It's like you're subjecting yourself to heartache every time you root for Charles.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. It's hard. I think knowing somebody in the cage is what really took me over to, I can't root for people. Because you're going to root for someone you know. Obviously, I root for them.
Yeah. But
it's so heartbreaking. It's like, I'm not putting myself through this for someone I don't know.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get to the point. Okay, so we're getting started. First, I just want to say that we have a name. We want to thank Jordan for coming up with the name as one of the students here. It is the Chokepoint, which, you actually saw on the first episode. We just had the big logo on there, and we called it the Chokepoint. So, kind of buried the lead on that.
Retroactively announcing.
Yes. But, yeah, the Chokepoint. So, it's a martial arts jiu-jitsu podcast that does not limit us to what we're going to talk about. But, yeah, so the Chokepoint.
Hello, welcome back. Episode 2.
Yeah, here we go. So we actually have a tentative agenda that we're going to talk about. I think we didn't talk about what order we were going to do them in, but I think probably the first segment we should do is Ask a Black Belt, because the other two will probably flow into each other pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree.
Okay, so first segment, Ask a Black Belt. I'm the Black Belt. Sean, and then obviously Keaton will be asking the questions. So hit me with your questions.
All right, so I'm going to start off with a little more of a fun question.
Okay.
And then they will get more, I guess, progressively, let's say, thought-provoking as we go down.
Okay.
Number 1, what's your favorite submission? Not your highest percentage one, but what makes you happiest when you hit it in the training room?
That's a good question, because favorite, when you just said favorite, I was going to say rear naked choke.
Right, yeah, and I kind of thought that's what you were going to say, and so that's why I added the second half of it. So, I want to know what
makes me the happiest. Well, I'll tell you what it's not. The heel hook. The heel hook doesn't make me happy. Although I do it a lot, it doesn't make me happy. I'm like, I guess I just got him with the heel hook. I don't know what that is. It's such a weird situation. And I'm not a anti-heel hook guy. I literally do them all the time. I like them. But I'm not happy when I hit them. Rear naked choke it's the best distillation of good jiu-jitsu, so I really like that one. Yeah. Obviously, I've passed the guard. Mm-hmm. I'm on top. I've passed the guard, and I've taken their back, and then I finished them. So I did really well. So if I got a rear naked choke, so it's okay, that one probably makes me happy. However, the twister probably makes me the most happy, and for the exact opposite reason. Now, I've done good jiu-jitsu, obviously, to get to the twister. I've passed your guard. I was on top, most likely, unless I took your back from the bottom. But still, that's pretty good too. And, I'm on your back. But also, you're so twisted up like a pretzel. And there's really, once you get their arm behind your back, and if you don't know what the twister is, look it up. Look up the submission. You can see you're like a pretzel. In wrestling, they call it a guillotine. Or we call it the wrestler's guillotine sometimes. But Eddie Bravo calls it the twister. And he's made it the most famous, so I call it twister. But yeah, that one, makes me happy because as I'm doing it, almost always the person I'm doing it to is like, don't you do this. Don't you do it. And they just can't get out. I've just got them stuck. So I really like doing the twister. I think it's mostly because it's funny to me.
Yeah, it is funny. That's how I feel about the ham sandwich.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, that's a good one, too.
My favorite, honestly, probably is like just the normal triangle from the front. Like, I love it. But the ham sandwich is definitely probably number 2. 'Cause it's like, you know, getting into leg lock entries. It's like, oh, you think I'm going to wrestle up and take your back? No, I'm just going to get you with this cheese ball calf slicer.
Yeah, ham sandwich is funny, too. Mostly because of the name.
Yeah, probably.
The actual move itself does not make me happy, but the saying ham sandwich to them while I'm doing it makes me extremely happy. So
yeah, specifically with a couple of our training partners, just the utter look of disappointment on their face when you go to hit it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so next one is, are there any skills in your game that you wish you had started working on sooner?
All of them, every single one. Yeah. Which is, it's hard. This is a conversation I have with myself. My self-coaching is, I often find myself like fantasizing about what could have been different if I say like started judo when I started taekwondo. So it's 7 years old.
Yeah.
The reason I don't say Brazilian jiu-jitsu is because it wasn't quite the right timing for Brazilian jiu-jitsu to be like available to me.
Yeah.
So I thought judo and then transitioned to jiu-jitsu, and how much better I would be if that happens. But it's dangerous. That it's a dangerous thing to think about because you can't change what happened in the past and when you started doing things. All you can do is start from today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to answer this question a little bit differently because I think this is what you're actually asking. What should you work on that I didn't work on?
Good perception there.
Right? And I would say one. So if it's actually you, this wouldn't be the answer, but if it's just anyone as like a white belt or a blue belt, besides the fact that you should be getting out of bad positions, but you're already going to do that because you're a lower belt and everyone's like passing your guard and pinning you and stuff, you should work on your guard retention ability and your ability to take people down in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like, those two things are really important. And if we're talking about mixed martial arts, you should really practice taking people down and not getting taken down. Like, you need to practice that. Probably build up some skill. I'm not talking about, like, the first time you ever train. Build up some skill first because taking a fall is important. Like, you can get injured. However, I think that's a detriment in a lot of people's games is they don't have the ability to control where the fight is.
Yeah.
If you need to get the fight to the ground, you need to have at least basic takedown skills. Yeah. You should be able to take down someone who doesn't have good takedown skills.
Yeah.
But yeah. I also started in wrestling when I was like really young. I didn't stick with it. So this isn't really an answer for me, but I think I didn't think about takedowns as much as I should have coming up.
Okay, so and then for the next question, rather than the physical skills side of it, more the mentality, what's something you wish you could tell every new competitor or something you wish that they would avoid?
You don't have to redline in the training room.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's not apparent to everybody because there's like two cultures on this. There's like the everyday parada guys who just like, we're just gonna throw down. It's porrada, but it's like we're just gonna throw down. Every day's the mundials, and then when I get to that pressure cooker situation, I'll always have gone hard, and I'll be able to overcome the other people. Yeah, I think that's diminishing in return, because once the person has competed a bunch, then they're not going to be under pressure. And you see people who don't do that. They don't redline, like, DDS, like New Wave, They don't redline. In fact, they talk about calming down and, like, rolling easy, Not like, it's not like just mess around. Like, you can't just flow roll every round. Like, if you flow roll every round, you're not actually sparring. You're just kind of, like, drilling back and forth.
Yeah.
which is cool too. You can drill back and forth.
It's almost performative at that point.
Exactly. Like, you're just like, yeah. But if you redline all the time, your chances of getting injured are really high.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard for you to train. And pretty much the only people we'll have doing jiu-jitsu are super tough people. And when we think about self-defense, we're only training people who don't need self-defense.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, because they could win a fight just off grit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, didn't you, I think, I don't remember if it's your coach or you who said this, but it's not who's best, it's who's left.
It's actually my coach's coach. One of my coaches, because Burton has so many instructors.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Howder said that.
Okay.
Which Burton got his purple belt from Chris Howder.
Yeah, I feel like those two things tied together.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. It goes into what I talked about in episode 1, which is don't get injured.
Yeah.
Right? That's not to say that you shouldn't go hard in the gym sometimes. You do need to go hard. You'll get more out of a hard session than you'll get out of going in a light session, right? So you need to do it, especially when you're preparing for things. Even if you're just a like self-defense hobbyist, I don't like the term hobbyist actually, but like you just recreational, you're not going to compete and you're just going for self-defense. You should go hard sometimes because it's good for your to put yourself under pressure. You don't have to do it all the time. It doesn't even need to be like super often.
Yeah.
It just needs to be at a regular interval.
Well, we have said before, you just need to know what hard feels like.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you've got that. And I really, like, you had said this far after my first tournament, but you had said it and I gone back and thought about it, and I really think that's true. It's like, you can go hard in the training room and, you ramp up, you ramp down, the periodization, but you get into that tournament and then someone grabs you with the intention of trying to actually submit you. That intensity is, I think, something you need to experience, so mentally you're prepared for it. Even if it's just the next match, you kind of know, like, okay, this is what this feels like. But I mean, even just from a nerves perspective, going that hard every single round, like, you will burn yourself out in no time. No time.
So many people will quit if you do that. And
especially smaller people.
Yeah, especially smaller people. Especially if you have a room with a lot of bigger people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and there's just no need because some of those people that will quit will be incredible. They'll be so good. And in different categories. They could be an incredible instructor. They could be an incredible competitor. They could be an incredible human being, or like they have like a knowledge about strength and conditioning that other people don't have, and they can help you there. Like, these are people you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
And you lose them because you're just beating them up all the time. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Don't redline is essentially don't redline all the time.
Okay. For our fourth question, it kind of ties into that, sort of, the idea of not redlining. How should a competitor pick their training partner or structure their training rounds?
Okay, this is kind of an interesting... I have kind of an interesting answer because I don't think I answer this like a lot of people answer it. But I kind of took this from Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership.
Okay.
I went to like the muster. I've read all of his books and I listened to podcasts, the whole thing. So I'm just going to give credit where credit's due.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of, if you get something from someone, tell the world that's where you got it from. So he's not like sponsoring or endorsing what I'm saying. I'm just saying I got this idea from him. But the way that you should pick your training partner is not like find someone your own size, find someone with a skill set that is complementary to yours or opposing to yours. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with find people and build a relationship with that training partner. As long as you can build a relationship with that training partner where you are mutually helping each other succeed, you will have a good training partner. And then you should try to have as many training partners as possible and build those relationships inside of it. That's why like I'm so big on like teams and stuff. Like, this is, if we're talking about jiu-jitsu or MMA, individual sports, right? But we talk about it with like teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those teams are teams built on relationships. And teams that fall apart are usually teams whose relationships fall apart, not teams who are incompatible in the training room.
Wow, I never would have pieced that together. We really do have a big foundation on this being a team.
Yeah.
Like thinking about our own gym culture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like how I think about it. The environment is very, very important. I've trained in a lot of places. Sometimes just like drop-ins and stuff, but like I've trained at a lot of places. And places that I enjoyed the most training, and the place that I stuck with is the one that had the best relationships in the gym.
Yeah, wow. I almost feel like I kind of take that for granted because I haven't really, I've done open mats, but I haven't like really trained anywhere else. So this is like the only culture that I know. So I think it would be really hard to stick with training if it wasn't like that. I come in here, like all these people are my friends. I like hanging out with all of them. There's several of them I hang out with completely outside of like martial arts. So it's just kind of strange to think that not every gym would be like that.
Yeah, but it is the most important thing. The people that I've trained with the most often are people that I get along with. It doesn't mean like, I like Batman, like an embarrassing amount I like Batman. And you don't have to like Batman for me to get along with you. I'm not talking about like we have to be compatible and we have to be like best friends forever or whatever. However, I get along with everybody I train with, and if I don't get along with them, I just won't train with them.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, that's how you pick your partner.
That's definitely not what I thought your answer was going to be, but that's a good one.
I know, because, like, it seems like I should be saying something like, oh, weight, someone around your same weight, or someone with a complementary skill set.
That's definitely what I thought you were going to be saying.
Yeah, it's not. That is not as important as someone who you have a relationship with. Because, number one, you guys aren't going to injure each other.
Sure, yeah.
Best example of this for me would be my brother, training with my brother. Mm-hmm. And I talked about it, you don't have to redline all the time. And, people joke that Cole is my brother, Cole Sutton. When we used to spar, we would go hard. And they'd be like, oh, they go hard. And then we'd be like, hey, you guys are going hard. And Cole and I would be like, no, we're not. We're fine. The reason we were saying that, and we weren't going as hard as we could. Like everybody, it's a joke that people exaggerate. We weren't going as hard as we could. Okay, yeah. But Cole definitely wasn't going as hard as he could. That guy, he has a gas pedal that I don't have. He's my much younger brother too, but he has a gas pedal that I don't think I ever had. But yeah, like when we sparred, I could go real hard with him, like very hard, and we could throw real punches at each other. We can go super fast, like really try to get at each other, because I knew that when it came to it, if I was in danger, he'd stop, and he knew if he was in danger, he would stop, or I would stop. I mean, like, because we care about each other, we're brothers.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the exact same kind of training relationship that Alex and I have with each other. We were talking about that last night while we were watching the card, specifically like with heel hooks. Like I try to be really gentle with heel hooks in the training room. A lot of times I won't really even put them on. Like I'll just clamp over the heel. Especially if it's someone I haven't done a lot of rounds with, because I don't trust them to save themselves. Mm-hmm. But Alex and I, we have so many hours of rolling with each other at this point. Like we can do heel hooks to each other and bring it right up to the point of tension and then not go any further, because obviously we don't want to hurt the other person, but like I trust Alex to technically escape from something and not explode. And he trusts me to not bring it to that point of tension and go, oh, well, he's not tapping, so I guess I'm going to rip it. So it's this really fine balance of like almost competition speed, but you just put that little bit of buffer space in there to where no one gets hurt.
Yeah, there's more to that, because that you also touched on another thing. Like I talked about this in class last week about uppercuts.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
When I'm in the clinch, I don't throw real uppercuts at people because at a lot of people, because often I think that they won't be able to see it coming, and those are the ones that knock you out. So I'll just literally pretend to uppercut them, so it just like touches their.
Just spilled water over myself.
Just watched Keaton spill water down his shirt, but that's okay. We're not going to judge. We didn't even have to say anything. It's audio only, but that's for you guys. But yeah, so like once I feel like the person can see stuff coming, like once I feel like they're good at like striking and like they have a good like sense of like distance and timing, I'll actually throw the uppercut. Not super hard, but I'll throw uppercuts and actually hit them. Mm-hmm. This is specifically in the clinch what I'm talking about. Not I'll throw them in kickboxing, because it's like a lower looking jab if you do like a long uppercut. But like when my head is up against them and I just throw it up from the middle, I move my head out of the way to hit them in the face, if you can imagine that.
It's like a Mike Tyson.
Like a Mike Tyson sort of uppercut. I don't throw those fully. I just kind of touch their chin, like just barely touch it. But the other thing I wanted to say is, so that's just an aside, but the other thing is, if you build a relationship with your training partner, it should be to the point where you're trying to win. Like, you can't win in the training room, but you know what I mean? You're trying to prevail with the least amount of effort possible.
Correct.
But also, you would be happy for your partner if they did.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's like I think I told you the other day, one of your gray belts Rotolo teamed me, and I have no excuses for it. He got me. And in the moment, I'm trying to get out because I don't want to get Rotolo teamed by a 15-year-old. But immediately afterwards, I was like, man, he got me. How good for him. Because he had been working on that and working on it, and it finally hit. And like, he was happy, I was happy for him. Like, it was a cool training experience.
Yeah, and just for the listeners there, in the martial art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kids belts, the kids have different colored belts than the adults do. Keaton is a blue belt. A gray belt would be the second belt for the kids. Then it goes like yellow, orange, green, and that's it for the kids. Once you're a green belt, you're pretty much going to be a blue belt when you become a 16-year-old. Or you can test into purple belt if you're really good, right? Mm-hmm. At gray belt, you're essentially, like, there's an estimate of, like, you'll probably be a blue belt when you're 16. So you're at least a year off from being a blue belt. So when he says a gray belt, like, he's giving a gray belt a props. It's a kid belt or a team belt, but also like a lower belt. So, there's humility in what Keaton just said. I just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Props to you. The kid's name is also Sean, so props to you, Sean. Proud of you.
That's just the quality of my gray belts. I can't. What can I say?
Submitting a guy who's 12 years older than him, who's been training twice as long.
He's doing good. He's
he's.
I
mean, I was sitting there. I thought because he started with a guillotine, switched it to a mounted guillotine, and I went to escape that. And off my escape, that's how he locked up the choke. And I thought I could get out, but then he did the thing where he plants my elbow into the mat, and I was trying to get out, and then I felt like the snoring sensation of when you're starting to go out, and I was like, well, all right, checkmate, he got me. It's like, dang, I got.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, I was super proud of him. And then for question number 5, on the idea of acquiring those skills, relationships in the gym, you're trusting someone to throw different strikes, someone's getting better. When is someone ready for their first MMA fight? And then off of that, at what point do you decide when that person's ready to go pro?
Yeah, so I have some arbitrary things that I look for, but then I have some pretty concrete stuff. So for MMA, for both, I've learned that you don't want to put them in too early to amateur and into pro.
Okay.
But there's some caveats here. But arbitrarily, I think I want someone to have competence on the ground. I kind of feel now, and I didn't feel like this before, that someone should be like a blue belt.
Okay. Or
a wrestler.
Okay.
Like have a wrestling background. Sure. I don't mean like they wrestled all through high school and they made state or whatever, but like some level of grappling competence.
Yeah.
And then they need to have in our gym. You start by doing open hand, which is like a touch version of kickboxing. Mm-hmm. It's like your hands are literally open. You're not wearing any gear. You're touching on top of the head and just lightly touching like kicks and stuff. I usually have people do that for a number of months. This is based off of Burton Richardson's JKD Unlimited MMA for the Street program. And that's actually, I do that to everyone, even if they have experience, even if they're a black belt in some other martial art, or they're like, even if they're like a pro fighter coming to train, because I want to assess, like, have you ever dialed your training into a technical spar that's more like Muay Thai style?
Yeah.
So I have everybody do it. And even if they're a pro fighter, they do it probably the first class or the second class. Like, for first week they're here for a couple weeks. And if they are, like, chill, I'm like, all right, put your gloves on. Like, let's spar for real. But, like, and then if, like, the pro's not interested in that, then I'm like, well, you're probably not interested in the way that we're going to train.
Yeah.
Or I'm willing to do private lessons where we can just spar, which I do. I have done that a number of times, especially with people who like boxing.
Yeah.
That tends to be what I do, because people who like boxing don't tend to like open hand for some reason. I don't know what that is, but like my experience, everyone that's coming with a boxing background is not really interested in doing open hand. They just want to put their gloves on.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Or interesting, I should say.
Yeah, it is interesting. But yeah, usually that just transitions to like, okay, well, you can spar with me then.
Yeah.
You know, but like the gym environment's important to me. And if you do open hand, it actually helps you build the relationship. Yeah. How am I going to trust you sparring? Well, I just build you up with progressive resistance based off of JKD Unlimited's MMA for Street. But anyway, so you need to have qualified to do helmets and gloves, and you need to have qualified for me to say you can do takedowns. So essentially what we call Vale Tudo, which is like the old name for No Holds Barred, the old name for MMA.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have proven, there are qualities that I look for to have qualified for those things.
Yes.
Which is like timing. Like, you have to be able to see punches coming. You have to have like sound mechanics. You don't have to have perfect mechanics to be an amateur. If you've ever watched any amateur debut fight, it's literally like the opening round or the opening seconds is an overhand or a double leg or like a football tackle. Like literally, it's almost every amateur bout I've ever seen. Maybe they'll come out and throw a couple jabs if they have like sound kickboxing or boxing, but like it will devolve into an overhand within at least 15 seconds, or they'll run out and just double leg each other, like huge football tackle. Happens every time because of the intensity.
Yeah.
The intensity in an MMA fight, if you have never been to one, maybe you see it when you're in the crowd, but like if you've never been coaching or like in the fight itself, and I bet it's much worse for the fighters, right? But even as a coach, there's like a palpable sensation in the air.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's kind of like that at the Kumite, probably to a much lesser degree. But...
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. I have felt it in like an actual like silly fight like that I've been in, where it's like it's hard to move forward.
Yeah.
Like it's literally hard to like get through the air in front of you. It's weird. It's a weird sensation. But once you break through it, then you're, if you think about it, fights are just like extremely hard sparring.
Yeah.
Because extremely, I'm not using that like normal, like I mean actually extremely.
In the truest form of the word.
Yes. Extremely hard sparring because there's rules and there's a person that can intervene. But it's close to a real fight.
Yeah.
And in some ways, much, much harder. And I shouldn't say in some ways. In most ways, much, much harder. Except for a real fight, you don't know how far the person's willing to go, so they might try to kill you.
Right.
Right? But most fights are just like scuffles that end in seconds. Where like an MMA fight or a kickboxing match or a boxing match, that person has been literally studying you and like they've been training to fight you.
Yeah.
Which is that's a weird thing to think about.
Yeah.
Even jiu-jitsu, like, jiu-jitsu as well, right? They're training to fight you specifically. So there's more anxiety that goes into it. But yeah, sorry, this has been a very long answer. But just to put this into a summation, you need to have some grappling fundamentals so you just don't run out there and get submitted right away.
Sure.
I don't think you have to be a blue belt, but you have to be competent, right?
Yeah, not make like silly mistakes.
Yeah, you have to be out of the spaz phase.
Oh, that's a good way to put that.
Right?
Yeah.
Where you're not flailing.
Yeah.
2, you need to have qualified for helmets and gloves at the Vale Tudo level, meaning you can do takedowns, clench with takedowns. Like, you can play the full game.
Yeah.
And you've been playing the full game in sparring, because in the camp, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a lot of the in-betweens.
Yeah.
And I usually like, if they're going to do MMA, I usually like them to have competed in jiu-jitsu or something, even something where they performed, like they were in band or they were in like dance team or something like that, where they've seen that people have been looking at them, like they performed in some way, because there's an anxiety there that can't be replicated. Except
sure is.
You have to have had people look at you while you're doing stuff, because you don't want that to be the reason you don't win.
Right.
So, yeah, those 4 experiences, I think, are what I look for. And you can get those pretty quickly, quicker than you think. But I don't want to put an arbitrary time limit on it because, lastly, and this is probably the most important, for an MMA fight, if you are training less than 3 days a week, I will not get you a fight. I will not.
So 3 is the minimal.
The bare minimum. Bare minimum. If you are not training 3 days a week in some capacity, I will not go and schedule you a fight. Your heart's not in it. If you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, don't do it.
Yeah.
If you say the words, I just want to try it once, I don't get you a fight. There are key indicators to me that you are not ready for it.
Well, the outcome, you go into jiu-jitsu, and you can get hurt in jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is safe because it's a combat sport. At the end of the day, it's a combat sport. I mean, you could get paralyzed doing it.
Yeah.
But, you're not getting your face beat in against the mat,
Yeah.
So you're halfway in, halfway out on a jiu-jitsu tournament, and it's like, you probably shouldn't do it, but it's not the end of the world. But in an MMA fight, that's like it's not where you want to be, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and at the white belt level of jiu-jitsu, they take out so many techniques that you can do.
Right, yeah.
That it's much safer as a white belt to go into a jiu-jitsu tournament. It can be safe where you can go in there and you're not sure how you're going to do, because you can't hit, you can't slam people on their heads, which is very important. You can't neck crank. Even some of the twisting locks like heel hooks and stuff are taken out.
No reaping.
Yeah, so it's really, it is much reduced than regular. If you would say black belt level jiu-jitsu, like expert level jiu-jitsu or submission grappling is like the actual sport, that's the sport, the actual rule set, then you would say like the white belt jiu-jitsu tournament is way reduced.
It's pretty, in comparison, it's pretty neutered.
Yeah. Amateur MMA to pro MMA, depending on the state, like in Kentucky where we usually fight, it's literally just like shorter round duration, longer rest time, and you can't elbow. And that's it. Other than that, it's MMA. It's like pro MMA.
Head kicks?
Yeah, you can throw head kicks. In Ohio, he's saying that because in Ohio you can't throw head kicks. But in Kentucky, you can throw head kicks.
Really?
That's why we compete there. But heel hooks, slams, belly to back suplexes, like
flying knees and stuff like that?
Oh, flying knees, yeah, you can do all that.
Really? I had no idea Kentucky was that open.
Awesome, you mean? They are awesome. Yeah, shout out to the Kentucky Boxing Athletic Commission. Boxing and Wrestling Athletic Commission, I think is what they call it. But yeah, it's MMA, and there's so much that can go wrong, so you need to be ready. And that's why I say it. Also, if you are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, this is one of the main reasons. If you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, you're not going to just I'm just going to casually stroll in there. I've never seen someone who's just casually strolling in there or doesn't have their mind dialed in win at the amateur level. And maybe that's just a small sample size. So, a lot of coaches out here are like, well, I've seen it. Well, awesome. But for my collective sample size, they were dialed in. Not as far as a professional fighter could be dialed in, where their food depends on it, but they're all about it. They want to fight. That's when they win.
Yeah, I mean, just the grit you need to get out of some bad positions if your mind's not committed to it. That I don't want to say quit, but the be done button is a lot bigger than someone who's mentally committed to it. I mean, even jiu-jitsu tournaments, there's been times where I'm like, well, this sucks, but I still have to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's because I went into that with the expectation of winning, and I think if I had anything less than that, that face crank might have been enough to, get me to say I'm done.
Yeah, I'm starting to change my mind about jiu-jitsu tournaments too, because I'm starting to get to the point where if I see a competitor, one of my competitors, giving up, their will breaking in a match, usually I'm like, and I'll keep, I keep coaching and try to get them through, and then I'm like, hey, get it together before the next round, right? I'm starting to feel like if I see that happen in the round, I might be like, hey, do you want to be done today? Do you want to be done with the tournament? Because when their will gets broken in the tournament, they just tend to go out there and do it again. Some people rally, which is why I do it the other way.
Yeah.
But and I don't want to teach people to give them the out, but I feel like if someone's broken your will, just continually going in there and getting your will broken is like a recipe to make them quit.
It sounds like, well, phew, I didn't even think about that. I was thinking more so like that's how you get hurt. You go out there at 60%, and that dude wants it, and he's out there at 95%. Seems like a really good way to get injured. Not even like, I didn't even think about the fact that quit. You know, you're already down, and then you get crushed and crushed and crushed.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you have to finish the bracket.
Yeah.
Or the round robin or whatever, you know, whatever it is. That's hard to come over. Hell, even a loss when you're mentally committed is hard to get over.
Oh yeah. 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 So that's it. That was a long answer, but yeah.
All right. Bonus question: what do you think the difference scoring criteria should be between? And I've got my own opinion on this.
Okay.
Between what should constitute as a 10-9 round and what should constitute as a 10-8 round
in MMA.
Yes.
A 10. So I'm gonna go even farther and talk about 10-7.
Okay. Great.
So 10 point musts. Let me start with I don't like it.
I don't think
me and the 10-point must system are not friends. I think it's very subjective. However, this is what I think, and it's based off letter of the law. I think a 10-7 should be something where a fight-ending situation happened. It was dominant the entire round.
Sure.
However, the person barely survived.
Like the time ran out and that's why they didn't get submitted, something to that effect?
That's 10-7.
Okay.
You know, like you got taken down, they're dominating you the whole time, they're hitting you, you're just defending yourself, they lock on a rear naked choke and time runs out. That's 10-7.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
so the fight almost ended.
Sure.
That's 10-7. 10-8, also a fight-ending situation has arisen, but it was more back and forth.
Okay.
Or multiple fight-ending situations happened.
Okay.
Which also shows a back and forth. So if you're chaining submissions on somebody over and over and they just keep escaping and keep escaping and keep escaping, that's 10-8.
Okay.
They were never on the offensive.
Yeah.
Right? But you weren't able to finish them. Same thing on the feet. You're like kickboxing them and you're beating them up and they're moving in and out. And, you know, maybe you got a couple knockdowns. Mm-hmm. That's 10-8. Right?
Okay.
Because if you think about the sport of Muay Thai, after the third knockdown is usually the fight decider.
Right.
So if you knocked them down 2 times, but you didn't get the third, then you never got a TKO and you didn't get an actual knockout. The difference being a technical knockout is referee's intervention and a knockout is the person is literally unconscious. Then that's a 10-8 round. 10-9 is you were dominant or you edged out the victory.
Yeah.
Right? Like you were close to... it was more back and forth. It was a competitive fight, but there was a clear victor who caused more. I also, with the UFC, they have like the damage, aggression, octagon control, you know, that type of thing. I wish that there were better criteria and it wasn't just so focused on damage.
Right.
But I do think damage is huge because you'll see things where a person just like takes a person down and holds them, but they just got cracked, like their body is destroyed, but they were just able to hold on. However, if that fight continued, the person that was just holding on, right, and was beat up could maybe submit them. Right? Or just wears them out while they're on the bottom. So we don't know how that's going to happen. But yeah, so that's some caveats, but yeah, that's what I think it should be. What do you think?
I'm actually almost in line with that completely. When Alex and I were talking about this last night, I felt like a 10-9 is pretty much like whoever pushed the pace more, you know, whoever edged it out in that capacity. And then I thought 10-8 should be in a scenario where the other person has no offense. And I felt like the Kai Kara France and Pantoja fight was a great example of that. I believe it was the second round. I don't think Kai had any strikes. I don't think he threw a single strike. Maybe in the last 20 seconds, but basically the entire round he had 0 offense. And so that was kind of my thought, is the deciding factor between 10-9 and 10-8 should be, did that person have any offense? No. Were they on defense the whole time? Then that's the 10-8. But it's an interesting idea you bring up, because we had talked about 10-7, and I didn't really have any input other than I think it's like only happened once or twice in the UFC. Like I think they're very, very rare. But that's an interesting idea, that the almost getting submitted and the time running out.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we said like, oh, if that guy had 20 more seconds, he would have won the fight.
If the words that he was saved by the bell, she was saved by the bell is uttered by the announcers, that's an indicator that that's a 10-8 or a 10-7 to me.
Yeah.
And if it was if it was already a 10-8 and they got saved by the bell, it's 10-7.
Yeah. I think in that I want to say the end of the first, Pantoja was almost in like a knee on belly scenario.
Yeah.
Like halfway to the back, kinda, but he was up, and then Kai was wedged in the corner of the fence and the canvas, and he had like one arm up in the air, like almost about to get arm barred, and then Pantoja was getting ready to unload like hammer fist. It's like 30 seconds more, and that's probably the end of the fight.
Yeah.
You know, neither of his hands were there to save him, and he was in an unathletic position, so it's not like he could have bridged out of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's hard. MMA is extremely difficult to score because in most striking sports there's a subjectivity to it. Obviously there's damage, and knockdowns obviously score, and knockouts obviously win, right? But there's a subjectivity. It's a lot like if you think about judo, Olympic judo in its current state, where they have like wazari, which is like you don't land flat on your back. Ippon, you land flat on your back with amplitude. And then there's yuko, where you like fall on your butt or whatever, like just barely fall down. But a wazari, you get two of those and you got ippon, right? It's also like a shorter pin. Like a wazari could be a short pin, and a ippon would be a long pin, right? And then you have ippon, I throw you down, you're immediately out. There's like wazari is essentially like, if you think about it, it's like a knockdown, right? And ippon is like a knockout,
right?
Instant win. And then when you go to the ground, jiu-jitsu and wrestling are usually scored on actual points. So movements that reward certain situations, like that get you closer to a fight-ending situation. I'm using terminology from the UFC BJJ Ruleset, which we'll talk about later. Yeah. Those have actual point values. So you have sports that have point values, which is the primary grappling arts besides like judo, right? Well, even though they have points, but like, and then you have kickboxing, which is more subjective, because you have damage, which you're just looking at their face. You have like endurance, so you're just like looking at the way they behave,
their composure,
and their aggressiveness. So there's like parts of that are subjective. So then they take the grappling and just try to make it more subjective in the UFC. Right?
Yeah.
And that makes it weird. But, like, I'm kind of getting ahead of the game because I'm going to talk about this a little bit later.
Yeah, we should get to the news.
Yeah, so, those are good questions. Nice work.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah, we got a lot of content out of that. Okay, so let's talk about the news. I think the main thing we wanted to talk about was UFC BJJ. In fact, we did this. We're gonna do this monthly. This podcast. We decided, hey, let's do this now because UFC BJJ 1 just was on Wednesday, and
this past week.
Yeah, and the road to the title was the previous week, and I kind of wanted to talk about it while it was fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
Because I see it as like a net positive. So we're going to talk about that in the news. So let's just say, and then we'll talk about like the state of professional grappling as we go in. But let's just start with, how do you feel about it?
I was very unsure of it at first. I thought it was kind of, the production value of it, was great. It's the UFC. Everything they do is pretty good. But the layout, it almost seemed a little forced. But as it went on, it got progressively better and better and better. And by the last 2 episodes, I was like, wow, this is like actually pretty entertaining. And the matches were good too. That's the other thing. I was really going into it. I was like, I wonder if these are going to be a bunch of terrible matches, like hard to watch, because jiu-jitsu is not the easiest thing to watch if you're not like really into it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I felt like a non-competitor, someone who hasn't even started training yet could watch that and be like, wow, I should go do this. And so from that end, I felt like that whole show was a really good thing for the sport, for the culture, however you want to phrase that. Mm-hmm. And then the finals was awesome. Yeah. For both the matches. I greatly enjoyed it. Really, that whole card was really entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. I actually was excited about it off the jump.
Yeah.
I wish Harrison was pretty good, like a pretty good choice. And Mikey's the choice for 135.
No brainer.
Yeah, he's a one championship champion. UFC can't talk about that, but he was the one championship champion, 5-time world champion in IBJJF. And Harrison was a Pan Am champion. He had beaten Baby Shark,
right,
which I think is why he was selected. I wish it just was Baby Shark, because that's a match that everybody wants to see, Mikey versus Baby Shark. And should have been him. That would have been the icing on the cake. And Harrison did a good job, but it did go how I think a lot of people expected. I mean, he was not the favorite, right? He was the underdog. Mikey was the favorite by quite a bit.
Right.
And it went about exactly as everybody thought. Maybe a little slower.
Yeah, I had imagined that would have been the outcome. Really, I could say this about the 170 match as well. I figured that was going to be the outcome. Did not happen the way I thought it would. I thought Mikey was going to go in there and just blow the doors off of Harrison, and that was not the case at all.
Yeah, Harrison has very flexible legs.
Yeah.
And Mikey does get zoned in on certain finishes. Like when he has a game plan, he gets locked in. He's laser focused on getting it. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it's a detriment to him. And I think Harrison was willing to let his legs go a little bit to get that championship.
Yeah.
If you could get a victory as the Pan Am champion, if you get a victory over a 5-time world champion, plus it's Mikey Musumeci, Harrison's overnight celebrity in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
Probably not the best for UFC BJJ overall for Mikey not to win.
Yeah.
If we think about it in that, in the professional wrestling aspect of it, but
context. Exactly.
But this is a shoot. It's not a work. They're doing real jiu-jitsu, and it's so I think he was willing to eat a lot of that, which I hate to see, actually. As a person who's done jiu-jitsu for a long time, I hate when people just let people break them.
Yeah. Instead
of give up. I get the warrior spirit and the gladiatorial warrior spirit, and there definitely is a part of me that's you're super, that guy's super tough. He's just willing to let his in the show. I forget his name, but the guy.
It was Mikey's friend.
Mikey's friend got, what is his name? I might have to look it up.
Carlos something?
Maybe.
No, I don't think that's right.
I have notes. It was, let's see, I think it was lightweight. It was Isaac Doderline. Carlos Enrique on Isaac Doderline. He just snapped his arm in half. It was just a dislocation.
Yeah.
But I hate to see that. But man, that guy's tough.
Well, it looked like he was trying to hold it at the point of break, and then he just okay, you're not going to tap, and then took it through. Gave him every opportunity to not dislocate his own arm.
Exactly. And there's something to that I want to talk about in a second. We are running up on your open mat again.
Oh, good Lord. Wow. Those questions took too long.
No, we were talking quite a bit. No, I think it's good. I like those questions. But I want to read you something.
Okay.
I want to read you the scoring criteria for UFC BJJ so you can see it, and the illegal techniques.
I think I'm about to be blinded by rage.
Okay. I just want to read this to you, and then we'll talk about maybe the state of professional jiu-jitsu, because it's going to go into this. So illegal techniques, there's some obvious ones, don't put your fingers in any orifice, no gouging, no striking, don't grab the ears, intentional, don't pull the hair, don't twist or hold less than 4 fingers, no pinching, scratching, biting. These are all pretty standard jiu-jitsu rules.
I like that they note 4 fingers, not 3.
Yes, I like that too. No slamming, excluding slamming, a slamming technique used as a method to escape a fully applied submission, a la ADCC Worlds.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like
that.
But
here's the one that I think you might find interesting. No pulling of the guard position that does not result in immediate initiation of action on your opponent. So you cannot pull guard unless you immediately initiate action, like trying to sweep them or trying a submission. Other than that, no pulling. You can't just grab them and sit to your butt. That was unclear from the way the matches went. I don't think that was enforced in that way.
I don't think that was enforced whatsoever.
Also, there's no mention of no butt scooting. So when Mikey scooted at, I think it was Harrison.
Yeah.
When he or it was, because that's the only person he went against. When he scooted at Harrison, he made him stand up.
Yeah.
That's initiation of action. You're trying to go forward, and Harrison's backing up. So there was actually no reason for him to be stood up. By letter of the law that I'm reading here on the UFC, on UFC.com.
I just wonder from an optics perspective, or who did Shaolin ref that? Do you remember who the ref was?
It has to be, yeah.
I wonder if mentally Shaolin was doing the UFC Fight Pass rules.
Ah, interesting.
Because they always stand people up, like from those standing guard passing scenarios. Like if it's not immediate action happening right now, they stand them up. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where he was mentally.
Hot take on that, it's not hot take, but I like the ADCC rules of retreating. I think if a person's laying there on the ground and if you have a situation where the person on bottom is butt scooting at the person on top, the onus is on the top person on top to try to pass the guard.
Yeah.
I think you are deciding not to initiate if you don't try to pass the guard. Personally, I get the reason for wanting to wrestle, though. It does actually make it more spectator friendly.
Sure.
To wrestle. But I think that they should have to try to pass your guard. Okay, then I want to go into a little bit more here.
Stop me before I go on a anti-guard tirade.
Yes.
Or anti-guard tirade.
Well, we can talk about that more in a second, but this is 10-9, 10-8, and 10-7, so I was informed by this in my answer, so here's that. A 10-9 round. So UFC BJJ is a 10-point must system. I don't know if everybody knew that. There's no points. But 10-9 is the athlete wins by a close margin. 10-8 is when an athlete is overwhelmingly dominant throughout the round. A 10-7 is when an athlete is completely dominant throughout the round, and a near bout-ending sequence occurred.
So they're not just the default, he won the round 10-9. They're actually looking into really paying attention to how the round went and then going from there.
Exactly.
So you have to earn the 10-9.
Yes. And the judging criteria, and this is what I hope, and I want to talk about the state of jiu-jitsu as a whole as our closer, but judging criteria is initiation of bout ending techniques is the number one.
Yeah.
So damage in MMA, initiating of bout ending techniques, effective submission attempts which require meaningful defense shall be given the highest value.
Oh, that's awesome.
So submission attempts are the most highly rewarded.
That's awesome.
I love it. Initiation of action is the second. Effective execution of offensive techniques such as takedowns, guard passes, sweeps, which further the progression towards bout-ending techniques shall be awarded the second highest value. So there is some level of objectivity in that one. However, if you get in a leg entanglement, if you get in an armbar position but you never actually expose them to it, that's second highest. If you sweep them, you're on bottom, you went to guard and you sweep them and now you're on top, you're getting closer to submitting them, right?
Yeah.
So each thing is actually rewarding what this sport does instead of the the IBJJF rules, which actually reward striking capability.
Yeah, right.
Right?
How well can you hit someone from that position?
This actually rewards submission capability. So I think this is interesting. I like the idea of getting points and getting rewarded for getting into a position where you could strike, because this will take it farther away from MMA grappling. However, it is interesting to see how they're rewarding submission.
Yeah.
And progressing towards the submission. And then the last one is duration of control. So an athlete who effectively controls the position and pace of the bout shall be awarded the third highest value.
So I like all of that. I think that rewards active, good jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Probably their whole idea was to prevent stalling, which, I like that they're moving in that direction. I wonder how they're going to handle people just spamming buggy chokes from bottom side control and stuff like that. Because if you've got a guy who takes him down, passes his guard, and then he locks up in a super tight buggy choke, and then the round ends, and the guy gets out, are they going to give the buggy choke guy the round? Because technically he was closer to ending the fight.
Yeah, I think you're probably just going to have them. But I will say, I think the two most successful spectator sports, well, I have to give another one a credit, which I will in a second. And I'm obviously trying to transition to our last topic.
Yeah.
But all were, and this is probably just going to show the age of like how I've watched, how long I've watched jiu-jitsu and like when I like my heyday, I guess. But I still watch it. I think the two most spectator-friendly ones are EBI and ADCC. I think those are the two most spectator-friendly.
Sure.
Special mention to CJI because CJI was super watchable and awesome.
It was.
Also special mention to Karate Combat. Super watchable, and I love it. Like, I love those criterias. But if you're talking about like lasting power and has the most amount of success over time, EBI and ADCC supersedes them because CGI has only had one, and Karate Combat is kind of just a tag on to their actual main product.
Right.
So for me, in one championship, I should mention one championship too. I love one championship's jiu-jitsu, but again, it's like a tag on, like on Karate Combat. So like not a lot of competitors in it. So EBI has spamming buggy chokes, spamming leg locks, like just like trying to get as many submissions as possible because the only way to win is submissions.
Right.
The only way people really game the game is they just try to force overtime and win on escapes or control, like escapes and control. That's the only way they game the game in EBI. And ADCC is watchable because of the restrictions. So I like this. And one championship has this too because they reward catches, right? Mm-hmm. It's generally submission only, but they reward catches as very high. So I think it's very similar to UFC BJJ. So the amalgamation of those three things with the restrictions that force high, what am I trying to say? Like high action, like pace.
Yeah.
Like ADCC has the restrictions that makes you have to attack. Like it makes you not want to stall, right?
Yes.
Then you have the priority of submissions like one championship in EBI. But then they remove the ability to do like an overtime, right? Because it goes to decision.
Yeah, then you don't have guys stalling to get positions that they may not otherwise have gotten in a normal round.
And I like EBI overtime. I think it's really interesting. I really like the show they did where it was just overtime. Yeah. That was cool. That was like a cool little sport that they made. I like it too. It's a different, if you think about it, it's kind of a different sport.
Yeah.
You know? But I like this a lot. But yeah. I like it. I think this is really good for jiu-jitsu. There is the whole Muhammad Ali act that they have in boxing. And, you know, there's an argument that you need to have a situation where people can compete in other organizations, or it locks in certain athletes and takes them out of the pool. Because I really don't want a situation where you can't have the best two people go against each other. Like, I come from an era where I wanted to see Randy Couture fight Fedor Emelianenko so bad. Yeah. And it just couldn't happen because of the restrictions between Pride and the UFC. Mostly, I think that was mostly on the Pride side, because, well, I'm not sure, because actually, there was a fight. Affliction was a show, and there were fights that were allowed to happen there, but yeah, like I don't want to see people locked in, so we can't see the best people go, but I think the UFC has a really interesting format. Yeah, I think it's good for the sport. So what do you think?
I get both sides of the argument. I'm going to steal from Josh Saunders here a little bit, and just purely on the size of the UFC and just like the, not propaganda, but the media machine that they can produce. If we're trying to sit here and grow the sport, why wouldn't we want the number one premier MMA organization to feel that? Yeah. I mean, you try to describe someone that you do train MMA, and they're like, oh, that's that UFC stuff, right? Like, everyone knows what the UFC is. So why wouldn't we want them to propel our sport forward? And it just helps that they've got a pretty good rule set, and there is the whole like athlete pay thing, which I'm interested to see how that shakes out as we learn more. I think the issue comes in when you talk about exclusivity, and then you can't cross promote, I guess. That kind of bothers me. I think that if they really like treated people like employees, gave them insurance, gave them good pay, that way you didn't, because professional grappling is not the most lucrative career until you're the top 1% of the top 1%. So if the UFC could change that landscape and make professional grappling actually lucrative enough for those guys to be fine with being exclusive, I would like to see that. But short of that, I am afraid we're going to get this scenario where we don't see Mikey fight any of the one guys for forever, or the CGI guys who aren't locked in won't be allowed to do the UFC or whatever that looks like. I could see that potentially being an issue, but I think that overall the UFC being involved is going to be a massive net positive for the sport, for getting people involved into jiu-jitsu, and maybe one day they'll put it in with the pay-per-view events. I think that'd be really cool. Like with what one does.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Or if UFC BJJ could be a lead up to a card, like the undercard is UFC BJJ.
Yes, exactly.
That would be really cool. That would lessen the amount of MMA fights that you would have. But honestly, the UFC has so many MMA fights. But you don't want to take away from like the undercard people, like the prospects. But yeah, there's a lot to that.
They could even just started earlier. I think most cards, like let's look at the UFC non-pay-per-view events, like fight nights. I think those start at like 6, 7, something like that. So if you had 3 UFC or BJJ matches start at 5. I think that would be a good way to go about that.
Also, like, if anyone from the UFC is watching, just, like, start earlier, please. Please just start earlier.
Please.
I'm so tired. I'm so tired.
Why are you making me wait until 1 o'clock to get my heart broken
in
the main event? Let me be sad at 10 o'clock.
The main event is closer to the time that I wake up than it is to the time I go to sleep. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day. It is so hard. I just have to watch it the next day. Like, that's just the way it is. Please just start earlier. I love it when it's early.
Like the Abu Dhabi cards starts at 3 o'clock?
Perfect.
Something like that. I can get out of lunch, go home, run a couple errands, and then I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. It's perfect.
It's so good. Yes. Please. Also, the idea that they're going to get rid of pay-per-views and have it just be a streaming behind a paywall, man, that's going to be so awesome. I want that so bad. I've been wanting that for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll watch every card. I will watch every single fight if you do that.
Because if you don't, you're shelling out $90 a month over 12 months. We're looking at $1,100 a year, give or take, something like that, versus $30 a month.
Yeah,
wild
idea. YouTube, when they put UFC BJJ on YouTube, and when Craig Jones put the CGI on YouTube for free, and I'm we'll air quote that for free because you can monetize it. Man, strike a deal with YouTube for the streaming.
Yeah.
Having it doesn't have to be an exclusive deal, but sign an agreement with YouTube that automatically monetizes it instead of being subjected to its regular monetizing. So it's a pay-per-view sort of situation because they have the rent or buy functions.
Yeah.
In YouTube, right?
In the YouTube Plus. They have their own subscription service.
Yeah, so do it on there and just offer it to people. If you want to grow the sport, it should just be available.
Yeah, accessibility is the big issue, and that's not talking bad about flow grappling, but it's not easy to use flow grappling.
Yeah,
and I feel like that has really been a barrier for a lot of people in watching the sport of jiu-jitsu.
I love flow grappling, and I've been subscribing to flow grappling for a really long time. I am also in my other life a software developer, so when an app doesn't work intuitively, it makes me furious. More than it should, because I know how to make apps. And so, but the way flow grappling is set up is so interesting if you have a multi-monitor setup, because you can play all the mats at once on multi-monitors.
Oh, okay.
So it's super cool, but no, only developers have that situation going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or the most hardcore fans who are going to be set up ready for that.
Yeah.
Not just, 99% of the populace who's just trying to watch a match on their phone.
Yeah, but next time, next ADCC, if I don't go in person, I'm probably going to see what it takes to do a watch party and then put all the mats
That'd
up
be so good.
on the monitors and then have like a watch party where we all watch and we get like an at-home but ADCC in-person experience where you're seeing everybody go at once.
That'd be so much fun.
That'd be so cool, right?
That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
A little open mat beforehand or something like that.
Yeah.
After or whatever.
Yeah, probably before because it goes pretty long.
Oh, yeah, it does. I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah. And afterwards, if we have an open mat, we will literally kill each other. So we just red line. You just watch somebody go through a table.
Yeah, hey, let me do this thing Mika just did real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe beforehand is probably the move. But yeah, hey, that was kind of an advertisement, wasn't it? I guess I got to do this now.
Yeah.
Yeah, brought to you by the Chokepoint. Yeah, so I think that like the state of I feel like, so I've been doing martial arts long enough to have been doing martial arts when the first Ultimate Fighter came out.
Yeah.
And I watched the UFC before the Ultimate Fighter came out. But I remember I was like, a fully functioning person who could drive and stuff when Stephen Bonner fought Forrest Griffin. And we were all calling each other like, are you watching this fight? I was actually at my friend's house.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And, like, people were calling. We were calling his roommate in the room like, oh, man, you got to come down here. Like, look at this fight. Like, it was... I remember how that just skyrocketed MMA and everybody knew what it was. And before, I was just some weirdo that, like, this sport, this, like, human cockfighting sport. And then all of a sudden, everybody loves it. It's on Spike TV. It's available to everyone on Spike TV because everyone had cable, and that's just a basic package channel, right? Or just, like, an extended basic package channel back then. So, like, kind of like my YouTube idea. Make it accessible and make the fight super exciting, which I think they did. It's going to propel the sport. And then the fact that we have, in jiu-jitsu, we have even more of a advantage because you have multiple parties that are exciting. You have ADCC, right? You have EBI still. You have CJI, which the next CJI, which is the quintet format, is going to be so... I know that's going to be awesome. I love
quintet stuff so much. It's my favorite.
It's going to be so great. And then you also have, one championship.
Yeah.
You have, and all of these have different rule sets, so they end up looking like different sports. And I know that they're going to kind of morph into each other a little bit. You have AIGA. AIGA's pretty exciting too. It's
AIGA is pretty cool.
It's like team ADCC.
Yeah.
Where like CJI is like team, but the 10-point must system.
Yeah.
And I like that people are borrowing each other's ideas too. I know they're mad at each other about that, but from my perspective, borrow each other's idea.
Yeah,
let's figure out what works and what's super exciting to watch, and then let's go with it. And that's the sport, or maybe there's multiple sports that come out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think something that no one else is really, or maybe they have, but I haven't heard it, that they're not talking about, that we also have a leg up on and from MMA, is the turnaround time. Assuming someone doesn't go out on their shield and let their knee blow out, in a Z-lock or something, if they're just reasonable and tap, you're building these personalities, these characters that people learn to like. Like I like Dante Leone. I think he's a super cool guy. I watch all of Dante's matches when I know they're happening, and his turnaround time for matches can be like week to week versus MMA, which, Ilya Tuporia is saying that he might fight before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And we're in June.
Yeah.
So you've got these people who are interesting in BJJ, and they can do match after match after match after match, and it just fuels the whole thing because it would be available.
Yeah, and there's some other things too. Like we're going into your time, but there's some other things about it that are cool, which is like they call it UFC BJJ. Which is interesting because if you think that that's not going to change how people call jiu-jitsu, like what people call jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and Gracie jiu-jitsu, then maybe you just haven't been paying attention or you haven't been doing it that long. Because, I came in when the Gracie jiu-jitsu split off, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu split off from Gracie jiu-jitsu. Like that's when I started training, right around that time.
Yeah.
And I saw how it changed. And now the UFC calling it BJJ, just like they went from no holds barred to mixed martial arts to MMA.
Yeah.
That is going to get in the lexicon of what people say. And now BJJ is becoming synonymous with submission grappling.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely is.
So that's an interesting thing. Like, that's going to change how people do things. Like, it's going to change what people call it. It's going to change how it's being, like, perceived. And then you have, like, EBI. You have ADCC. You have one championship. You have UFC BJJ now. Did I say CJI yet? CJI. All submission grappling. So, like, now the divergence between no-gi and gi is going to get bigger. And, like, the names are now, like, switching around.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely kind of a catalyst point in the history or culture.
Yeah. This is going to change the way that we look at martial arts as a whole.
Yeah.
And I hope UFC BJJ's rules get into MMA's rules. So there's more emphasis on submissions as well.
Yeah.
Because if you think, everybody says like, oh, like grappling is boring or whatever, not everybody,
It's a common theme though.
Yeah, but like people who don't train essentially don't like grappling.
Right.
Right?
Stand them up.
Let's just let them bang, bro. Like, I get that they're saying like when you fight and you hit them in the head, it's like they'll actually die. Dude, if you're choking someone, they might die.
Yeah.
If you're neck cranking someone, they might die. That should be rewarded over punching them in the face pretty good.
Yeah.
If I have you in a fully locked choke and the time runs out, I almost killed you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're going back to the purest, like, we're fighting.
Yeah.
What ends a fight? A jab versus a fully locked in rear naked choke, hand behind the head.
Yeah.
Whole kit and caboodle.
That's a knockdown. If I almost choke you, that's a knockdown. It's like except the consequences could be even more fatal than an actual knockdown.
Yeah.
Of course, when you knock someone down or knock someone out, that it could kill them.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if they hit the concrete or whatever. But if we're thinking of it as the purest distillation of combat, of human combat, almost choking someone would kill them.
Right.
Even almost breaking their leg. If you break someone's leg and they can't stand up, you're going to beat them in the fight.
Yeah.
Like, or at least, like, if they win off of that, they're incredible.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree entirely.
So, I think it should be rewarded more. But, anyway, I guess we could leave it at that. Any closing thoughts before you go train? Charles,
I'll be a fan forever.
Awesome. Yeah, he's talking to Charles Oliveira for the folks at home. I'm excited about the future of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I'm also excited about the future of MMA and like just martial arts in general, of how this is going to change how we train and what we do, and hopefully it doesn't get farther away from the expression of like true combat, which is what I'm the most interested in.
Sure.
Hopefully it just enhances it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be a net positive, and I think the what people are training for might shift. Rather than everyone trying to be an ADCC champion, everyone might try to be a UFC BJJ champion, and I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, that's it. That's our show.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.